Chapter 6, Wandering in the Desert. We had no church and we did not know what to do. But then a church from another town contacted us. They wanted us to come and help them. We met the leadership team, but I withdrew due to some particular issues, including membership and submission to them. I could not agree to become a member of that church because by doing so, I would also have to approve of everything that was happening there, which I could not. The church had a wrong view of remarriage after divorce, and I could not accept that. Moreover, I was not able to find proof in the Bible for the idea of membership. In the previous church, we did not have to sign any papers in order to become a member. We were together just like the first Christians. Furthermore, the issue of having to submit to them was hard for me. Why should they make decisions for me concerning my life as if I was still a child? At that time, I considered it very unhealthy, not because I did not want to do what the Bible said, but because leaders had tried to subdue/control me too many times in the past by saying that I should give up my vision or compromise on the Word of God. I was simply afraid it would happen again. I had to be faithful to God and His call instead of people's opinions. The issue of submission is a big problem in some evangelical churches. This does not mean that new believers are not to listen to their spiritual parents, but I think that mature Christians get locked up in a hierarchical system that stops them from making progress. For this reason, we had some more talks, and the outcome was that we did not have to become members. I was supposed to preach one Sunday a month and could spend the rest of my time working for the last Reformation. We considered this to be a good deal, so we decided to move to the town. With regard to the issue of submission, they said it would not be a problem, and it wasn't, as long as I was within the system. However, they later used it against me in order to stop me from doing what I felt was God's will. I am not writing about these things in order to let out hurt feelings, but to give you an impression of how this system can work in some places. Through all of this, we have learned a lot, and even today, we would not have wanted to miss any of it. When we were supposed to move, we suddenly found ourselves with no place to move into. I remembered the words I had received about signing some papers without paying, so I thought it had to be about a house for us. I prayed and absolutely believed that God would give us a place to live. 14 days before we had to move, we still had no place to move into. 10 days before, we still had not found a place to live, so we felt pressured and sought God. 8 days before we had to move, a Christian man came by and said that God had told him to buy a house for us. All I had to do was find one. 7 days before the day we were to move, I found a beautiful house. I gave the papers to him. Later the same day, he called and said he had bought the house on the condition that the ones who had been living in the house for 33 years would move out within 6 days. They had agreed because they had a summer house into which they could move. The day we were supposed to move, we had a big house ready to move into. We were really happy and were praising God. The deal was that we would have to pay the house rent and all the house expenses to the man. As soon as we were able to take a loan from the bank ourselves, we would be able to become the homeowners, and the home equity would be ours. We started to minister in the church as had been agreed upon, but within a short time I was asked if I would like to be the youth leader because they had no one else for the task. We felt a little pressured, but agreed. It went very well for a while, but after a time I could see that it could not go on the way it was going. What we had experienced in our living room before had made a strong impression on us. As a result, our view of a Christian fellowship was much different from the view of the rest of the church. I could see that if we continued as the youth leaders, we would lead the youth group in one direction, while the church went in another. Besides that, we could also see some theological differences, so we withdrew and started to seek God about what we should do. Some time after that, I was on the Faroe Islands, where God spoke to me through a prophetic word. When I came home, We knew it was time to take the next step, which was starting our own fellowship. We knew that the leadership would definitely not be happy about it, so I inquired with some other churches that were in the same network in order to find out what I should do. As a result, we gathered together and I shared with them what kind of calling we were experiencing. We believed everything was fine then, but it was far from fine. Our understanding of things obviously differed, and the church leadership was not able to follow our view on fellowship. At the same time, they were really afraid of losing their members. As a result, others were warned against us, and we suddenly lost a lot of friends in the church. The man who owned the house changed his mind because of what happened. As a consequence, we missed the home equity worth $40,000 to $50,000, and we had to move again since he did not think the deal was valid any longer. It was really difficult, and we could not understand why there was so much trouble just because we were doing what we felt was our calling. Things did not work out, even though we really tried to do it by the book. Why are the churches so afraid of new fellowships if all the numbers show that this is the solution to reaching the world? I felt particularly hurt because of the issue with the house. I had experienced before that people called me names and told lies about me, but this time it also affected my wife and children. They had been so happy to live in the house, and we had some nice neighbors with whom our children could play. I tried to talk to the other churches in the network, but it seemed they did not care what we thought. It was just us against a bigger church, so nothing more happened. The story of suddenly being warned in advance is unfortunately not a singular event. Later on, I met an African who had left the same church in the same town some years before and started an international fellowship. He experienced exactly the same problem, having suddenly been accused of heresies and being warned against, which resulted in his losing a lot of friends. In many ways, our system resembles that of Jehovah's Witnesses. This might be hard to understand before being in a similar situation oneself. Since then, I have met so many people who have left the system and have told me about their experiences afterward that I can say it is not totally wrong to say that it reminds me of the Jehovah's Witnesses' practice of ostracism.